Okay, so get this. You've got a crypto millionaire, a super suspicious death, and $250 million that just, poof, disappears. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the absolutely wild mystery of QuadrigaCX and trying to figure out what in the world happened here. So, let's just start with a number, because it's a big one. $250 million. And we're not talking about some giant corporation's money here. No, this was the life savings of over 100,000 regular people, just like you and me. And then, one day, it was just gone. You know, this quote really cuts right to the chase, doesn't it? The whole entire story hangs on the death of one guy. But here's the thing. His death was so convenient, so perfect, that a lot of people, especially the ones who lost every penny, are asking a pretty huge question. Did he even die at all? All right, so let's get into it. The $250 million mystery. The guy at the center of this whole mess is named Gerald Cotten. He's 30 years old, CEO of what was, at the time, Canada's biggest crypto exchange. And the official story? He drops dead suddenly on his honeymoon in India. And, get this, he supposedly took the only passwords to all that money with him to the grave. So his widow comes forward and says she has absolutely no way to get into his encrypted laptop. You know, the one place where all the keys to this massive digital fortune were supposedly kept. So the money, she says, is just locked away. Maybe forever. But you have to wonder, right? Is this a terrible, tragic accident, or is it the perfect cover story? Okay, so who was this guy, Gerald Cotten? I mean, to really get how this whole thing fell apart, we've got to understand the man who built it in the first place. On the surface, Gerry Cotten was just perfect. He was the ideal face for this weird new world of cryptocurrency. He came across as this friendly, super trustworthy internet genius. You know, exactly the guy you'd feel totally comfortable giving your money to. But the reality? Well, that was a whole different story. And his company, QuadrigaCX, he sold it in this really simple way. He'd say, hey, just think of it like a stock exchange, but we're trading Bitcoin. A super simple place for buyers and sellers to do their thing. And you know what? It was a great pitch. And for a while there, it worked like a charm. And when I say it worked, I mean the growth was just explosive. By 2015, all the other Canadian exchanges had basically gone bust, which left Quadriga as the only game in town. Then things get a little weird. In 2016, his co-founder just vanishes from the company. So by the time the massive crypto bubble hit in 2017, Gerry Cotten was running this billion-dollar operation all by himself. All right, next up, cracks in the empire. So you can just imagine it, right? It's 2017, the crypto boom is in full swing. Hundreds of millions of dollars are pouring in, and Cotten and his wife start living this incredibly lavish lifestyle. But behind all the glitz and glamour, the whole thing was starting to fall apart. And the problems just started piling up, one after another. First, there's a so-called technical glitch that just happens to lose them $14 million. Then a major bank freezes another $25 million, which totally crippled their cash flow. Pretty soon, customers are freaking out because they can't get their own money out. And then, when the price of Bitcoin just tanks in early 2018, well, that's when the real panic set in. And then, right in the middle of all that chaos, the bombshell drops. The company announces that Gerald Cotten is dead. He was traveling in India, supposedly to open an orphanage, of all things, and just died. The official cause of death? Complications from Crohn's disease, which is interesting because it's an illness he had managed his whole life. So that brings us to the next phase, the digital autopsy. And here's where it gets even stranger. The company waited for over a month, a whole month, to tell anyone he was dead. And the moment they did, the website goes dark, Quadriga files for bankruptcy, and the real investigation, this sort of digital autopsy, finally gets started. Now, Cotten's whole defense, his big story, was that all the customers' money was totally safe. How? Well, he claimed he kept it all in something called cold wallets. You can basically think of these as digital bank vaults. They're offline, totally disconnected from the internet, so hackers can't get to them. But here's the most important part. He insisted that he and only he had the keys. So this really just spells out the official story for you. And the logic is kind of brilliant in a terrifying way. Step 1, store a fortune in an unhackable digital vault. Step 2, make sure you're the only person on the planet with the password. Step 3, dies suddenly. The result? The money is gone. Forever. At least, that's the story they were selling. But then, the court brings in the big guns from Ernst & Young to investigate, and what they find is, well, it's just mind-blowing. Those super secure cold wallets? Totally empty. It turns out the entire operation was a sham, a complete fraud. Cotten was creating these ridiculous fake accounts, I'm talking names like Aritu D2, pumping them full of fake money, and then using real customer funds to gamble on other exchanges and funneling millions directly into his own pockets. And the lies went all the way to the top. I mean, right to the very beginning. Investigators dug into his mysterious co-founder, this guy named Michael Petran. Turns out his real name was Omar Thalani, a convicted felon who had already done time in a U.S. prison for, wait for it, identity theft and money laundering. So from day one, Cotten's business partner was a professional con artist. Okay, on to our final section, dead man or exit scam. So let's be clear about one thing. The money wasn't locked away in some digital vault. It was just gone, stolen, gambled away, and spent over years of fraud. And that leads us to the biggest, most haunting question of all. So let's look at theory number 1. This is the tragic death theory. Maybe the official story is exactly what happened. I mean, it's totally possible. Gerald Cotten definitely had Crohn's disease, that's a fact. And some really good journalists actually went to India, they found the doctor who treated him, and they confirmed the whole story of his final hours. So maybe, just maybe, he was a con man whose luck just ran out at the absolute worst possible time. But then you've got theory number 2. And this one is way more sinister. The idea is that this was the most incredible exit scam of all time. An exit scam is basically when the founders of a business just vanish, and they take all the investors' money with them. The theory is he faked his own death to get away with it all. And honestly, when you start looking at the red flags, things start to get really, really suspicious. Okay, let's just run through these red flags because they're pretty damning. First, the timing. It's just too perfect. He dies at the exact moment his whole Ponzi scheme is about to collapse. Then there's the will. He signs a brand new, super detailed will only 12 days before he leaves. The funeral, closed casket. Nobody, and I mean nobody, reported actually seeing a body. And on top of all of that, you have the location and the fact that the first embalmer they went to in India took one look at the situation and said, no way, this is too weird, and refused to touch the body. So you can see why everyone, from the police to the reporters to the thousands of people who lost their life savings, is just stuck in this bizarre limbo. And honestly, this quote from a journalist who covered the story just says it all, doesn't it? I'm not convinced he faked his death, but I'm also not convinced that he's dead. So it all comes down to 2 massive unanswered questions. 1, where is the money, Jerry? And 2, are you even in that grave? To this day, not a single dollar has been recovered. Not one person has been charged with a crime. And the lawyers for the victims have been begging the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to do the one thing that could answer at least one of those questions: dig up the body. And that, for now, is where the story just stops. It's this perfect modern mystery with 2 completely different endings. Was Gerald Cotten just an unlucky fraudster who died at the worst possible time? Or was he a criminal mastermind who pulled off the ultimate disappearing act and is maybe, right now, sipping a drink on a beach somewhere? The truth is, we might never find out.